Then I felt all this overwhelming love that, we none of us can really even explain with words, right? Like it's impossible. Like the love is beyond infinity, and it's just so I automatically left my body and I went into that portal. And then that's when I went into that portal. It was when I saw my family members greeting me on the other side, and they just were beings of light that they were really tall and they were just I really couldn't say faces or anything, but it was just like you could see the aura around them, and they were like white and blue. And there was like I did see some energy from their hearts, just emanating light from their hearts. I came to see in the fourth dimension. I came to understand that that's where all lifetimes are happening. So I saw maybe like 10,000 lifetimes. So as I came above my higher self, I looked down, and then I saw bubbles like dances of lifetimes all around me, and they were like just I don't know, they were like spheres of light, and I could see screens flying around those spheres, and they were like movies, and there so it was they were all lifetimes, in each one of those bubbles. And then they said, yeah, that's okay, that your universe was just a school, but there's other universes and there's other schools.
This is Beyond with Heather Tesch, where we examine near-death experiences and life itself, hopefully making this life a little better.
Hello, everybody. Welcome and buckle up. You are in for a wild ride today. My guest is Rafael Garcia. Hello, Rafael.
Oh, hi, Heather. Thank you for inviting me today.
You are welcome. So nice to see you again. I saw you at the IANDS conference, and you are just such a bright light. I just love how your personality sparkles, and I can't wait to talk to you about your incredible experience. What I find really fascinating about your experience is it starts out kind of normal. You go through a tunnel, you see some family members, and then, whoa, it just takes a wild turn. So why don't you just step us through it?
The way I had my experience, and I guess I like to make sure I say this right now at the beginning, because it was an NDE, but perhaps it was more of a STE, spiritual transformative experience, or an initiation. That's kind of how I like to explain it more, because I didn't have any accidents, or I didn't have any death trauma. Sometimes people get comments saying like, oh, he didn't have an NDE because I wasn't clinically dead, or so.
We'll call it a spiritually transformative experience, and a big one.
Yeah, it was a spiritual transformative experience, awakening, initiation. I sometimes like to you can put the umbrella of the STE or initiation of awakening, but I think eventually everyone will go through these experiences in their awakening, so. But yeah, so my whole life I've been able to see spirits. So that was kind of used to seeing, grandma, grandpa, uncle, and different family members that would come see me. So I was quite used to that. But then in 2004, I had this experience where I felt this energy that came. And at first, I was actually asleep, but I woke up because I thought it was a spirit. And then at that moment, I realized that it was not a spirit, and then it was like a cloud that came above me. And then at that point, I realized that, yeah, it was time to go, and I realized that that's really when people pass away, when it's their time, you will know, like, it's just this energy that, it comes for you. And then, and at that point, I knew I couldn't run away, because I thought about running, because sometimes I probably see spirits, and then I knew they would leave. But I knew at that point I couldn't run away. Like, it was pointless, like, so I was just like, okay. But then all of a sudden it was like, I saw this light, right? That, people have come to say, yeah, it's God. It's this overwhelming love and joy and everything. But, the way I came to understand it later, it was just more like it was a portal to the next dimension. And it really, that light, it's a projection of our higher self. Because throughout time, later on, through more experiences, it's really our higher self, that light, that love. It's our higher self projecting that, unplugging you from the matrix, kind of like in the movie The Matrix. You're being unplugged. So as you're getting unplugged, it's the light. It's a portal to the other side. So anyway, so then I went into the So as soon as I felt all this overwhelming love that, we none of us can really even explain with words, right? Like it's impossible. Like the love is beyond infinity, and it's just. So I automatically left my body, and I went into that portal, and then that's when I went into that portal. It was when I saw my family members greeting me on the other side, and then they were all like happy, and then they were like just cuddling me and hugging me and laughing, and then at that point they were like, okay, well now you have to go meet the council. And then I saw like a dome and a chamber, and then they told me like, yeah, we have to go over there, and then I told them, where are you guys going? And they're like, yeah, we got to go back to school. So they go back to school. So I'm like, okay. They're like, yeah, don't worry, we'll see you later. And then they all kind of flew away, and then I saw this chamber, and then it was like a dome, like a small dome chamber, and there was a door. So I was like, okay, well, and it's radiating love, right? So it's not like I'm afraid to go in there. It's like, oh my God, let me go see what's going on. Let me go meet the council. And then so I go into the door, and as I walk in, I saw 12 beings, 12 council that were just radiating immense, infinite love. It's the same love that radiates when you see the light, So it's love beyond words. So you just feel overwhelmed with love. It's just, and then so then I was just like, they were like, yeah, welcome, and it's like your parents, they didn't have any features or anything. Like they just were beings of light that they were really tall, and they were just, I really couldn't say faces or anything, but it was just like you could see the aura around them, and they were like white and blue. And there was like, I did see some energy from their hearts, just emanating light from their hearts. And then, they just said like, welcome. And then they asked me, how did you feel about your life? That you just lived as Rafael. And I was like, yeah, I had a really good time. Thank you. And I've been pretty lucky because I traveled the world a lot, and I lived in many countries. So I had my whole life, I always felt like I was here on a vacation. So I took that literally, and I've been traveling the world, living in many countries. So, when they asked me how was my life, I was like, yeah, it was great, man. I had a great time. And they're like, yeah, that's good. And then I felt like a little kid. I don't know, it was weird, like parents, but it was also like my brothers. It was a weird feeling. It was like a parent, or like it was like, just, it was kind of like, I felt like a little kid, but at the same time, I felt like they were like my parents. And then they say, we're going to, we would like to show you your life review, and show you, just how you did in your life. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. And then all of a sudden, in this, it's a chamber of light, which is like kind of transparent. The whole space is transparent, luminous, white, kind of blue and gold, different colors. And I'm just like, and then as, kind of like being in the clouds as well. It was like kind of hard to explain, the stars, and it's all at once, this kind of space where you're in this with the council. And then they started showing me a movie of my life. It's the life review that you start seeing. And then, and as they showed me the projection of this movie, they told me, Rafael, like the way this whole thing works with life and the matrix, and, you incarnating, and to have life experience is to learn lessons and to master lessons. That eventually, that's why we all keep coming down over and over and over. It's to actually, to master the lessons. And then I came to understand that each one of those beings, each one of those councils, represented a different lesson. So one of those beings, represented unconditional love. That was that was the lesson it represented, and that was the frequency it had, and that was the lesson, and that was its essence, unconditional love. And then another being was maybe compassion. That was its essence and the lesson. And then another one was kindness, integrity, patience, respect, forgiveness. Oh, the one for forgiveness, man, that was a being of light. Like I remember, I could see the frequency emanating out of them. So like the forgiveness being was like such a light being. I was like, and I felt the frequency emanating out of them, So it was like being in the quantum realm, where I was able to see how that the ultimate goal is to align with all of these beings, with, or learn and master all these lessons, right? So then, then they show me, whatever, a scene where I was like, I show kindness to someone, and as I was shown that, in the movie, then the being of kindness kind of lit up, and it was like, it was really tall being, beautiful being of light, and just was like recognizing me for my actions, for kind of like making him proud, or making that being proud. It's no he or she is just a being of light. And then, it was like the being was so proud of me that, like, yeah, you did great, like, kind of like thumbs up. And then from there, maybe they show another scene where, I was like, I had faith, like that. I think that that's another lesson. You have to have faith, right? Like if you will, have the courage to do something, like you have faith. And then, maybe I had faith that I was going to travel or whatever, and then the being of faith kind of lit up. And then, and then maybe the forgiveness, right? Then, a scene where I forgive someone. And then the being of forgiveness came over, and I was just like, oh my God, like I was like so blown away by the being of forgiveness. It was like as the being of forgiveness stepped or kind of lit up, it was like this supernova explosion that radiated out of this being, and it was pure love. And I was just like, God, that's like ultimately, that's the lesson. The forgiveness is like, once you're able to master or become one with that being, or learn that, master that lesson, that's when you are becoming, that you yourself, we ourselves become, they actually told me, you eventually become us. That's how we progress. Once you master all these lessons, once you align with all of us, you become one of us. You are one of us. But the whole thing is that you'll keep going back to Earth over and over, to master this lesson, so that you can align and master the lessons. And that's when you become an ascended master. That's what they told me. And then at that point, I was like, oh, and then after that, it was like, I came to understand that my life as Rafael had all been a dream. It was all a dream. So that's kind of when I came to understand too, what a lot of the teachers have said, that, yeah, this is all a Maya, an illusion. That's when I came to understand that 100%. Like, God, that was a dream. Like, I was like, what? And that was the real world. And that all the people that we have in these, we say that's the real world. This is the dream. And then from there, I was like, and then the Council of Light showed me that, like, we like to show you how this works, this whole thing about reincarnation. And then from there, they showed me a circle with like thousands of lifetimes, and then they showed me that, basically, that I came to understand what they showed me, that there's like this multiple version of ourselves existing simultaneously, right? So all these lifetimes are actually happening at the same time. They're just happening at different frequencies. And then, but then there was a beginning of the cycle. That's how they show me. And that there is still this kind of like, it's kind of difficult to explain, but there is still this kind of like reincarnation, a cycle where you go one by one, like in kind of like in order, like then the next life, and then the next life, and then the next, and you kind of keep going around a circle. It was shown to me as in a circle, and that's why. And I know a lot of religions, they say the cycle of reincarnation, right? Because it goes in a circle, and then the more you incarnate or evolve, then the more you evolve, and then and then maybe some of their first life, let's say in some of the lifetimes, maybe you committed, I don't know, something not nice, you did something to someone or whatever. But then in the next lifetime, that was the karma, right? It was like in the next lifetime, it kind of came back to you. And then it came back to you enough times that that you learn in your soul blueprint, that you don't want to ever hurt anyone. You don't ever want to kill anybody. You don't ever want to do anything bad towards anyone or anything. So it kind of, you evolve towards, as you master the lessons, to a more benevolent being, right? To a more being of light, to a kinder being that you just want to help. And so then they did show me that we kind of keep coming back over and over to master the lessons. And then at that point, they say, we would like to show you who you are. And then I came to see myself as my higher self. So I became like a fifth dimensional being. I came to understand that our higher self is at the fifth dimension, and that's the higher self. And then as I became my higher self is becoming like an ascended master or a council of light myself. And then at that point, I came to see in the fourth dimension, I came to understand that that's where all lifetimes are happening. So I saw maybe like 10,000 lifetimes. So as I came above my higher self, I looked down and then I saw bubbles like dances of lifetimes all around me, and they were like, just, I don't know, they were like spheres of light. And I could see screens flying around those spheres, and they were like movies. And they were all lifetimes, in each one of those bubbles. And so each one of those bubbles was a different lifetime. And then, so I came to understand that I was the player. I was playing all those avatars like a video game. And then I came to see that this is like, and they told me this is who you really are. You're this higher being of light that everyone is. It's not just me. It's everyone. And you guys are all playing these games or these video games in a way, right? It's just for the experience. It's just for the experience, and so that we can evolve. And then they say that ultimately, the goal is to master the lessons. And as you master the lessons, then that's when you start having these experiences, right? That's when you start then awakening. That's why the whole thing is about awakening, is start understanding all of this. You start understanding your higher self, and then your higher self, the player, it starts revealing to you the matrix, right? And then it starts showing you all these other lifetimes. Because then at that point too, then I got this quantum jump into some of those different lifetimes. So as I became my higher self, this being of life kind of flying up here, and I was like in the universe, in the space of the universe, my higher self in the bubble. I was like, my higher self was in the bubble of light, and it was just radiant light. And then I could see all those little bubbles, all the lifetimes. And then I just kind of like looked at one, and as I looked at one lifetime, I traveled in a wormhole, because it was like all those bubbles were connected to me. You see what I'm saying? It was like they're all part of me. And then so through a thread of light, I was all connected to those bubbles. So as I just looked at one, I traveled in a wormhole. My higher self consciousness, part of it, traveled in a wormhole in that thread of light, and went inside one of those bubbles. And then I remember the first time I went into one of those lifetimes. They showed me. I went inside a Viking. Well, I went inside. It was weird because the way I went inside the bubble, I actually entered like a comet, and I was flying on Earth. I guess so. There's the bubble is the Earth, and then I'm flying, and then I see this land, and it's like Scandinavia, and then I see this little village, and then I see a little cottage, and I'm just like a spirit flying, and I go inside that little cottage, and I see this man with his baby, with his wife and his kids, and then all of a sudden I go inside him, and then as I go inside him just for like 5 seconds, and I realize that that's the avatar I had in that particular lifetime, and I'm holding the baby, and I'm looking at the baby, and I'm looking at my wife, my kids, and I was like I was like, my God, so this is my lifetime as this character, this avatar. And then I was pulled out, and then so I kind of got this quantum jump to a couple of different ones, like where I was a Greek philosopher in Greece, and where I was a shaman, and where I was an African American slave, where I was like just different things. I was, even a witch. I mean, in a dungeon, and where I was a king, where I was like just different characters. That ultimately we get to experience all of these experiences for our evolution. And I don't know if you have any questions, Heather.
Did you see any future lifetimes?
Yeah, I actually. Okay, so then they showed me that I still had 6 more lifetimes to complete the cycle. I mean, at least that's what I was shown, and then and at that point I realized like that I couldn't believe, like that's when I was like, oh my God, even those 6 lifetimes left, they're happening right now, like, and all the other ones, right? They're all happening right now. I think that's the really crazy thing. But I did get to see one of my future lifetimes, But they actually showed to me later on, not at that space. Later on, I ended up moving to England, and I was living in Cambridge, and then I went to London. And when I was taking the underground in London, I was going down the escalators in the underground, and then all of a sudden a portal opened up. And then as this portal opened up, I saw the future. And then I saw I saw like different holograms saying like, get your, apartment in Mars and different things like that. And then all of a sudden this man appeared out of nowhere. He just, because I'm like in the Matrix, right? This is a lot like the movie The Matrix. So all of a sudden this person, just comes out of nowhere. And he's kind of wearing like a little hoodie and Englishman. And then all of a sudden I go out, but I'm taking, so this is Rafael, right, like 2015, taking the escalator down in the underground in London. And this other character from the future is going up the escalators because he's in that space that I'm seeing, this portal in the future. And then all of a sudden I go inside him, and then I take out the hoodie because I really like, I realized that was me in the future lifetime. And then I saw Raphael, and then I just smiled, and then I went back into Raphael, and then I was like, whoa, that's me in the future lifetime in London. And then all of a sudden the hologram just disappeared. So yes, I've been able to see one of my future lifetimes as well.
When you talk about all these lifetimes, it just sounds exhausting. Do we really enjoy having all of these lives?
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. For me, it's incredible, like that we get to have so many different characters. I mean, can you imagine just having one and that was it? Like, that would be kind of boring, you know what I mean? So it's just so many different scenarios. And it's just for the fun. I think that's just for the fun that you have all these different experiences. So you get to be everything.
Now, during your experience that you were having, you also stepped through something and you stepped out of this universe into, I think, other universes. Can you explain that?
Yeah. And then, what I came to understand so then they show me this, the council, basically told me that I still have 6 more lifetimes. And then they kind of show me what it was like to complete the cycle, like kind of like heads up, like this is what's going to be like. And as I completed this, they showed me once I completed the cycle, I became one with my higher self, and my heart exploded, like it was a supernova explosion that came out of my heart, and I became all my lifetimes. At that point, I could become them all the lifetimes. And I understood them all. And I came to understand all the suffering was a blessing all along, like it was just for the experience. But as I became my higher self, it was like becoming basically an ascended master or a liberated being or one with your higher self, really. And at that point, all of a sudden, 3 beings of light came into the chamber. And I was like, I felt like they were like my parents, and then all of a sudden I felt like a little kid graduating from like becoming an ascended master or one with our higher self or completing the cycle of reincarnation. It was like, I compared myself. First, I was like, oh God, I'm an ascended master. Like, that's crazy. But then all of a sudden, these 3 beings come in and they're like my parents, and they're like really advanced beings, like 9-dimensional beings. I don't know, but they're like my parents, and they're like congratulating me. They're like, you did great. And I was like, oh my God, like what's going on? And then they told me, you did amazing. And now we're going to show you what comes next. Like, after you complete the cycle of reincarnation. So then all of a sudden there was still that door. So then they're like, come with us. We're going to show you what's next. And then we walked out of that door. And as we walked out of the door, I realized that that dome all along had been our universe. So, because I turned back and I was like, that was our universe? Like, it was kind of like confusing for a minute, but I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And then they say, yeah, that's okay. That your universe was just a school, but there's other universes and there's other schools. And then now you can get to go to another universe. And then there was like this, they showed me this one universe where it was like the universe the ascended master universe, where you become like a 5th dimensional being and you can start incarnating in different civilizations, more advanced, like the Arcturians, the Palladians, Lyrians, or just different civilizations all over the universe, and then or parallel, so then basically they say, yeah, you can. This is a school where you become an ascended master, and then from there you get to learn a lot of more things. I mean, all those beings are like telepathic. They're teleporting. They're time traveling. All that kind of it's like normal.
It sounds like there's so much more to talk about with that, but let's go ahead and take that into part 2. I just love Rafael's enthusiasm. You can tell when somebody's passionate about something, when they just get excited talking about it. And there is so much more that he shares coming up in part 2. So here's a look.
As I see this book, it's like a book of light and stars, and it's kind of like transparent, glowing. And then I see like this is like the divine plan of Earth. So then, but it's still like in a kind of book format that is transparent, And then all of a sudden, so I'm like, okay. So then I open the book, and as I open the book, I see a holographic projection of the divine plan for Earth that eventually will reach utopia. What I saw is like the collapse of the systems. So right now we're entering, like I saw all the systems collapsing.
And what systems?
Like politics and the economical systems.
And when do you foresee that happening?
This year.
Oh, this year.
Just remember that we are immortal beings, and that there's many different dimensions that we ascend to. The higher, the more you align with these lessons, the more you align with this love and unconditional love and joy and compassion and integrity, and the more you're going to start getting downloads, or the more you're going to start raising your frequency, the more you're going to start having access.
Okay, that and more. And I will say that some of these ideas, they were new to me. I hadn't heard them before, and it was really interesting to hear about his experience. What did you think about the things that he shared today? I mean, he talked about all those lifetimes, and it kind of sounds exhausting to me. I'm not sure what you think, but I'd love to know. So in the comments, just share what was interesting to you, what stood out to you, what was new to you, that sort of thing. I love to hear that. I love connecting with you in the comments. And if you prefer just to say you made it, that is great too. All of those comments really help my channel, as you know. So I do really appreciate those of you that do it time and time again. And thank you too for all of your likes and for sharing all of that good stuff and subscribing. I do appreciate you all so much. If you want to watch past episodes, you can always find the links in my description. That's also where you find links to part 2 or release dates for what is coming up. Thank you again, everybody, for coming here today, and I do hope you'll join me in part 2.
Thanks for joining me on Beyond with Heather Tesch. Please add comments and questions you'd like future guests to answer. Also, if you liked what you heard, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. That'll help keep this podcast going. You can also go to Beyond with Heather Tesch to look for more episodes.